Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob from Oceanside. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by HOKA, Master Spas, deboer wetsuits, Premium Plus Sports, SFuels, and their all-new Zone Fuels. And you can get a free sample below. And of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, defending champion of Oceanside 70.3, Tamara Jewett, joins us. Nice to be back at a race that you won last year.
Yeah, really happy to be here.
Very cool. And what is it about this course that worked so well for you last year?
I think the temperatures are great here. I like
Yes.
the kind of cooler water and sort of like cooler race morning start. Usually it's sort of a beautiful temperature by the
Yes.
time the run starts. And yeah, I don't know. It's like bike course is beautiful through
It really
the camp.
is.
And then the run is a great atmosphere. Usually there are a lot of people
Big
out
crowds.
along the roads. And
Yeah.
you're beside the ocean. So it's just all around nice.
Yeah, the other side of it is it's concrete on that run, so that can beat you up.
I mean, most of the runs are a lot like hard surfaces anyway. I think like especially with the more cushioned super shoes, it's not
Not
as
as
big
bad.
a factor as
Yes.
probably it was before that technology.
So we were just down in Clash, Miami a little while ago, and I didn't get to chat with you after the race, but I saw you after. I think it was after the bike that you pulled out, or was it during the bike?
It was about halfway through the
Halfway
bike.
through the bike.
Yeah.
And mechanical or?
No, like honestly, just emotionally bad moment in
Yeah.
the race. I think it was a really tough week for me leading into that race. I was there on my own, which I've done before, but not often. So
Right.
I didn't really have a big support group with me, and I thought I would be fine with that, but it ended up just being a lot more sort of solo pre-late race logistics that took a toll, I think.
Yeah.
And then just I think like a buildup of so many little things like that. So I've kind of avoided those speedway races for as long as I could because the format of so many laps is
That's mentally
just,
draining. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really what brings me joy in the sport. I was reflecting on it after, and even in interviews, I was thinking back on, I talk a lot about when something goes wrong in a race. One of the biggest things that I draw on is sort of like the beautiful scenery often. and I was kind of reflecting after on like how I expected the speedway environment to be difficult for me, and I have tended to avoid those. And then after that happened, just reflecting on how big a part of my sort of mental strategies, some of the sort of natural beauty aspect of a lot of triathlon courses is, that was part of it. But I basically had an excellent swim. I'm so happy with how my swim went. And I was sort of rallying until it just got to a moment where I couldn't pull on the normal energy that I have to rally. And it also, the time of day of that race is different from anything I've done in triathlon.
Right? Yeah.
It was very hot. I think it was especially excruciating for the men. It was a strange atmosphere coming in and seeing the attrition rate in their race kind of coming into the
And knowing that you're next.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's
So I
hard.
think when you're feeling a little down to start with, that was a hard thing to see right before stepping up. And then around when I stepped off the bike course, the sun was going down in our race. And to be honest, I felt like the last of my energy sank with the sun a little bit there.
I get it.
So I think, I've never had a DNF in triathlon before, and it really sucked. But it's the kind of thing where I think if that happens once in a while, and particularly this race it was so early in the season, and like, yes, the stakes are high, but at the same time, they're not as high as if it was a world championship or
Right.
if you have a team really depending on you for that one. And I think it's one where I just need to give myself a bit of a break.
Yes.
And understand what happened, but I'm not too concerned about it. I'm in really good shape, and I'm excited for a lot of the races coming up.
Well,
So.
unless like you said, you've been avoiding those races, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I could be great at this. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and do it, and you realize, okay, if I come back, my mindset has to be different because I liked racing where it's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you draw on, and you know yourself better than anybody. You came from another sport, so when you're in this sport, you're in it for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jackie Herring really made me laugh the morning after, because I came down to breakfast and she was sort of like, oh, what happened? You just didn't want to do it. Hey. And, that elicited quite an awkward laugh from the table, but I kind of appreciated it because there's really like just a baseline truth to it. That honestly, I think, I think an experience like that can be helpful in terms of just showing you, if I was back in that environment, what I do need to work on. And so I'm not too concerned about it going forward, but I don't know. I failed that test, so I'll just need to get back at it.
Well, but you draw on it. You're racing in, what, you guys have a 3:00 start, 2:00? It was late.
It was just before 4.
Yeah. Which is very unique, right?
Yeah.
But even in track, did you have a lot of races that were that?
I did. So track had some very late night races. Like I think the latest I started a 5K was at like 10:30 p.m.
Wow.
But I didn't love it.
You didn't like that either, yeah.
No, I think some of those twilight meets for track can be a lot of fun if you're like a little bit earlier than that, at maybe like 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And like the wind dies down and the temperature calms down, and that can be really beautiful on the track. But those races are like, my favorite event on the track was 3K, and then 5K was the most I'd be doing. So, you're out there for like 9 minutes to 16 minutes. It's just a different activity. And
well, you're also for 3K or 5K, it's X number of laps. Mm-hmm. So this is 22, whatever. It's a hell of a lot of cycling laps, and then you've got the run, and it's a lot. It was
22 laps on the bike, and then it was going to be 7 laps of the run. And it was tricky the stadium was very empty for our race. It was a very like subdued environment. It was strange, like a very intense race, but then a very subdued atmosphere around that. And it was difficult. They tried to have a good lap counter up, but it was very hard to see, and it was very hard to hear everything. So even the lapping dynamics, it was a little bit hard to tell when you were being passed. Like some people, it was clear that they were lapping you, but then some people, it was a little bit discombobulating. Right. Of like, am I being lapped? I need to fall further back, or is this someone on the same lap as me? And it's just a new dynamic. It's just something to adjust to.
More thinking than a lot of times when you're racing. You don't really want to think that much. You just want to put your head down and go. Well, and then the opposite of that type of race is this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You're jumping into the surf, and you're swimming through the surf and coming into the bay, and then you're riding in a place where a lot of people you're not allowed to ride on the military base most of the year, and it's beautiful out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very different atmosphere. And I think this one is definitely one that plays to my strengths.
Yes.
But some athletes really love those laps in that speed course. So it's just a matter of different styles. And this is more what I got into the sport for.
Exactly. So. I mean, you were into a sport where you ran in circles. You did that for a living.
Which I left.
Which you left on purpose. And now you're at a racetrack going in circles. You're like, this seems familiar. I don't know if I really want this. This is a little better. And the nice thing too is, here, especially on the run, the crowds, there's actually really, really good crowds on this course.
Yeah. And I do really think, as much as there are pros and cons of some of the ways that having a big field can sometimes interfere with the pro race, I do really appreciate the atmosphere of having a big age group field around.
Absolutely.
It just brings so much energy into the event. And I think even coming from track and field, I don't like in Canada, track and field isn't a huge sport. And so you can have very high level events with basically empty stadiums.
With mom and dad.
And it was a nice, It's
That's
like
really,
Canada's top athletes and their family and a few friends.
I know, right?
And it was a really nice thing coming into the sport of triathlon to have such an event each race. And I really appreciate that energy.
Yeah, that's what I love. What makes our sport special is your 60-year-old age grouper is on the same course as you are, right? They're doing the same. So at the end of the race, you can compare notes, and you're a professional trying to make a living at this, and they're a dentist out here having a good time. But there's a camaraderie, there's a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even with that push to, like, when the going gets rough, to finish that race, that combined energy, even if people are trying to get to the finish line for very different reasons, I don't know, I feel like that is something I draw on. And as much as, like, I know many pros don't keep their, like, finishers medals and they get a ton of them, like, I've definitely had races too where I'm like, man, I need that finishers medal, even if this is rough going. I just want to get there. And I think, there are just a lot of little things like that I can see more clearly maybe now where I draw on it
Yes.
or what I get out of it.
Well, and again, you made the transition from a pretty isolated or insulated sport where, again, you're running in circles. There's not usually a lot of, unless you're at a major event, there's not a huge number of people in the stands, and it's you against you, and this is different, right? You can gain different things from racing with age group athletes and racing with the other pros. And there's just, I don't know, it's just more of I just love the camaraderie that goes along with the sport. And I just love the vibe when you come to a place like Oceanside or Kona or wherever it happens to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So when you look at the end of last year, you win in Michigan, 70.3, get second in Augusta, second in Indian Wells. Really great end of the season. And when you finish the season, did you go back home and go, okay, this is what I need to work on? Because you're still fairly new in this world.
Yeah, there are always things to work. I don't think anyone gets to a point in triathlon where there's, like, nothing to work on. There's so many moving pieces. I think even my run, we've gone back and looked at my run form a little bit over the winter to see if we can, make, like, very minor improvements, even if it's just to, like, make sure we're continuing to prevent injuries there and stuff. And cycling came along really well by the end of last season. I was really happy with my power numbers, particularly in Michigan.
Yes.
But I think that continues to be a big focus, and bike handling is a bigger focus this year. We've been talking about that for a long time, but I'm trying to, like, build it in even more consciously this year, including some, like, mountain biking lessons and just, like, anything to get comfortable balancing on a bike, and kind of thinking of that sometimes as, like, playtime on my bike. I feel like I need that time of, like, like, my husband has very good bike handling, and a lot of that is him as a little kid just, like, playing with balance on a bicycle.
BMX bikes and all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've programmed some time into my schedule that is sort of like, okay, this is Tamara as a kid playing on a bike time, and I'm finding that it's starting to translate even into slightly better 180-degree turns, and just trying to add more of that in, even though the format for it is a little bit flexible. It's more like playtime rather than I need to master this skill in this session right now.
I remember leading into Rio, Gwen Jorgensen, who did not consider herself a bike handler, and there was some descents on that course that were going to be pretty brutal, and she again, playtime, she'd be on the back of a moto, I think it was a Red Bull guy driving, to give her a sense of those downhills, right? And then I think even she was doing some virtual work with figuring out how to the line and turn and just your leverage on the bike, and that all makes a difference because you're dealing with all different types of courses now. Yeah,
and just looking at, I think it's important for, like, it's great to work on power, but you need to translate that power into speed, and I think that handling is a really important piece of power into speed. Exactly.
Have you found that with the cycling, because sometimes the sports complement each other. The aerobic work from swimming helps you in cycling. Has the cycling hurt the running or helped the running?
I think it's helped, at least for, like, the type of running that a half marathon is. It's given me a lot more, like, strength overall. And I think particularly for running up hills, I just feel stronger. That was something I noticed pretty early on switching to triathlon, on, like, a cross-country style course or on sort of a hillier course. I felt like the sort of upper leg strength from the bike was really helping me.
Last year, you ran down Chelsea Sodaro to win this race. And Chelsea's one of the best runners in the sport. When you were out there, this is one of those courses you do see each other a couple different times. Could you tell that you were gaining?
Yeah, gradually. I think there was it took a while. It took a good quarter of the course to try to, like, what she was in sight, and I was trying to catch up. And I think I was in such a good headspace in that race. I was really patient about it, and one thing that really stood out to me about that run that went so well, I just felt very at peace with the outcome there. Like I really respect her running, and so it's not. If I hadn't been able to catch her, fair enough. Like she's such a good competitor.
Right.
So I think that just gave me some peace to be like, you know what, I'm gonna try, but the stakes are like in some ways high, but very low. Like I just need to try. And so
Right.
I kind of patiently whittled away at it. And then once I passed her, ran scared for the second lap of that run, pretty sure that she would have a good response. So it really helped out my overall run time there. It was great for me. And, it was just a matter of being patient, and it was not clear to me for a good part of that whether I would ever catch up or not. It was good.
So this season, we'd be focusing on the PTO, on the T100, the Ironman series. What's your choice, or both?
Yeah, both. The T100 is my main focus.
Okay.
So I'm not racing Singapore. That was just too much travel and too close to this race. And not a great temperature coming from Canada in the early spring.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I might do all of the rest of the races. There's one other one that I have a choice about whether I do it or not, and that's TBD, especially because Miami obviously didn't go well. I might end up doing
Ibiza
more. Well, I'm going to do Ibiza. I think Dubai is the one I'm on the fence about. And so I might end up doing Dubai to make up for Miami not having been great, but TBD. But I do really love 70.3 racing. So I'm here. I'm going to be at 70.3 Tremblant, which is a really important one to me being in Canada. 70.3 Talon, and then Worlds in New Zealand I'm really excited for.
Very cool. You see, all those are pretty places.
Mm-hmm.
Those are
beautiful.
Which is why you got in sport.
New Zealand I qualified for in 2020. So this is like a trip that was planned 4 years ago.
Oh my
God,
the
pandemic.
Really? Was it 2020?
Yeah.
You qualified for
That was so the first time I ever qualified for Worlds in my first pro season was supposed to be 2020 Worlds in New Zealand, and obviously then the pandemic shut everything down, and then I think it was supposed to go back to New Zealand, but they were still a bit more shut down, so St. George stepped in to host again. So I'm excited to finally get there, and we had this beautiful trip planned with my husband. So he's going to come down, so
wonderful.
Really excited for that.
So and then what's great, it's the end of the season.
Yeah.
Right? You finish with that race, and then you can spend some time in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Love it. Tamara, thank you so much for always being so generous with your time. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Tamara Jewett has been our guest, our defending champion at Ironman 7.3 Oceanside. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.